Welcome back to another episode of these crazy people that just keep eating meat and can't stop talking about it. I'm the host, the usual host, Tom, and we got the usual other host, Justin, and of course, Ray, and a few other faces you might have seen before, and a few you probably haven't. And today's topic is what? Why don't you introduce the guest, since there's a bunch of people here, Justin, and you know him a little bit better than I do.
Yeah, tonight's guest is Asa. I know him from the Facebook group My Doctor Says, which I always thought was kind of interesting because generally people in this space typically go against what their doctor says. So maybe Asa can clear up the name confusion for me. We just kind of chat. I like what he posts. The dude has a lot to say and a lot of great insights and things like that. And even when we disagree, we keep it civil, which I think is really important. So if you want to take it from here, Asa, go for it.
Yeah, just let me say real quick. Apparently, Ray and Ace have had a strong bromance for a couple of years already, and this is the first time we actually gotten them together. So should be a lot of sparks flying tonight.
See, the meat mosaic, that's what we're about, bringing people together.
Awesome.
Yeah, so tell us your story there, buddy.
Well, it's extremely long if you want the whole story, but we'll just kind of go over more of my meat story. I, like a lot of you, started off really sick and was just really that determined to survive, and then found, well, for about 8 years now, I found kind of a more of a paleo diet at first. And I was more trying to impress a girl. Well, I had my heart broken by this girl, and then I was like,
would we get anything done if we weren't trying to impress a girl? I'm just saying.
I know.
I always say all the world's great inventions started with a sad boner. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Leave it to Justin.
She's Justin.
He is shameless.
Yeah, it was hard for me, but then it was just kind of stupid. Like, I looked at my skin and was like, oh, I have these bumps on my skin. Maybe that's why she didn't like me. I literally thought that. And so I just explored what the cause of those bumps were. And I ended up getting to this yeast called Candida. So I started obsessing about that. And I basically went on this low carb antifungal diet. I took grapefruit seed extract for 2 weeks with a high probiotic count with yogurts, and just a lot, real low on carbs, all no gluten, very much all organic, mostly meat. And then within 2 weeks, by accident, my clinical depression that I've always had was completely eradicated, and my chronic anxiety was kept in remission. So that was pretty significant to me because I didn't really know. I thought those were just mostly like, I was diagnosed with them, but I kind of just associated them with just them just being meat. And when they were gone, I was really, really just blown away. So that really awakened me. I started to look into all of the pharmaceutical industry and the lies behind it. And that really led me to really just keep going with my diet. So I did that for about 5 years before I went raw paleo. That was really weird because I tried raw peanuts and those are nasty. But the raw meat though really led me in a crazy direction. I did that, and then by accident, it changed me in a lot of ways, hormonally or otherwise. I started feeling much different than what the cooked meat, and that is an entirely different thing altogether. I actually went into carnivore, just cooked carnivore because of the Joe Rogan podcast, because my vegan sister told me about it. And yeah, she's not vegan anymore. Let's just say that. So that's great. So I went 6 months just eating baked chicken, just whole baked chicken. That was it. 6 months straight, just salt, baked chicken. My testosterone was just all around, just getting extremely high. Like, I was going out at night and always confidently knowing I could get a girl and bring them back home. And I was feeling really, really, really good. Before that, I was feeling pretty good. I was so confident with women that through that whole spectrum of paleo. But when I hit carnivore, oh my gosh, it was a different thing altogether. So that's when I started getting into understanding plant toxins and their association with the microbes, which I had already known. I had been through those years and doing paleo, had just avidly been studying mostly just epidemiology and microbiology and how that pertains to nutrition, and how even just a leaf or just a grain that we eat is like a big fat meal for all those trillions of microbes we have. And so that really kind of triggered for me, like, oh wow, wait a minute, it might seem like nothing to me, but that might explain why like my anxiety can come back if I have one meal with rice, and it helps me to better understand that. And I looked into like how yeasts can get in and ruin our and kind of clog up and make us have neurotransmitter problems. So if you have, for instance, like they connected serotonin to like ADD or OCD or anxiety, and that's largely why I believe that anxiety for me has always been kind of a remission factor, and that's why carnivore puts it down. Because like if you eat all meat, the microbes can't enjoy the benefit of having no sugar. Like if they don't have sugar, they can't just come out and keep crapping into our system and clogging up our neurotransmitters. So that's also probably why my depression was cured, because I killed the yeast and they're no longer able to like really make it so bad that I had depression anymore. But I'm hoping someday there's maybe a cure for anxiety, but I'm never going to throw that word out there because I have yet to discover it. Because if I were to eat, I don't know, if I just really pounded on some Snickers right now after just being carnivore for so long, I'm going to end up breaking out, and I'm also going to get a ton of anxiety. I'm probably lose hair too. All kinds of things. I'm sure you guys have experienced all kinds of things like that from a relapse. But yeah, so anyway, ended up into the all meat thing. Then I eventually went into all raw meat. I didn't even add any plants or anything, just raw meat. I did that for about 4 months. I realized very quickly that there's some problems with just eating raw meat. I could not assimilate it well. I could only get like 1 pound in, and I got really skinny, and I was just having such bad energy problems. And I had decided to just keep going with it though. I started dry fasting a lot, like long term, like 3+ days, and I ended up excreting like a whole bunch of gallstones that by accident I didn't even know. And just miraculously, I was able to start eating like 4 or 6 pounds in a day if I really wanted to. And then I started to get more energy. However, I since then had relapsed in between because of family events or otherwise. But I had gone on and off doing raw carnivore over the last 2 years now. So I'll like sometimes I'll explore doing some dairy, and then doing this raw carnivore again. But generally, it's been this weird relationship though, because I can't go back to cooked meat anymore. Like when I eat it, it just doesn't, like, my body doesn't want it. It just constantly wants raw meat, even though it doesn't let me digest it as properly as like if I were to have cooked meat. Like cooked meat, I can get energy a lot faster. I have a theory that it's methylation issues, because there's so many more intact B vitamins that are water soluble in the raw meat as opposed to the cooked meat. And a lot of people have methylation problems, upwards of like, they speculate 50% or more, just because of the MTFHR gene. But they also connect the MTFHR gene to like another candida infection where they crap into the methylation cycle and disrupt that. So it's long and convoluted and very complex, but I have a lot of theories on it. So that's my current step right now, as I'm pursuing that. I am currently consuming raw milk and raw meat. I eat about 2 pounds of raw meat a day. I eat 9 raw eggs, and about maybe about like 5 cups of raw milk in total. And I'm just using the raw milk mostly for building mass. The carbs are part of that, but largely I've been on a carb-based diet, or I've been on a diet where I've had carbs and I've gone to the gym, and I'm doing it just the same as I had before. But now I'm rapidly gaining muscle way faster than before. And it may have been due to all the fasting I've done and the healing. And at the same time, though, it's been, I think that it's the androgens in the raw milk. They're naturally occurring. So there's naturally occurring androgens and there are estrogens. I find that when I get extreme reactions, like sometimes I'll consume raw milk and get kind of these estrogenic qualities to it, and I notice it. Like sometimes I'll want to listen to Britney Spears as opposed to like the bodies hit the floor, you know. When I'm working out, I'm like, what the heck is this? And but at the same time, it's weird because you also get the androgens, so you feel like a man, but you also don't. So
Feel like a man, sting like a woman. I was going to say cry like a woman, but considering our guest tonight, yeah, maybe we've been the wrong direction to go in. Anyway.
Oh, jeez. But anyway, so I've been really fixated on the whole testosterone thing last year, primarily because it's been giving me a bigger beard. I've just been altogether mentally more masculine. I don't even want to dance anymore. I used to be big into dancing. I'm pretty good at dancing too, but I just don't even want to do it anymore. It's weird. And at the same time too, I was always pretty good at dating and all that and getting women, but now I just straight look at women and I stare them down like they're prey, and it's very weird. And I'm like really diarrhea mouth about it. Just straight up tell them like, holy crap, you're hot. Like right in the middle of a grocery store line, I'm looking at them straight up deadpan. And I just tell them like, wow, you're so hot. You should go out with me. And then everyone around me is like, what the heck? Did he just say that? And I don't even control it. It just comes out. It's just weird. Anyway, so the testosterone thing's really cool. I think it's the raw milk. I usually talk a lot of crud on raw milk. A lot of people who follow me are like, oh, Asa hates on raw milk all the time. I'm just realistic. There's estrogen in raw milk. You have to recognize it. It's naturally occurring. It's not from like any added hormones. It's just there. It's not because they're consuming soy and alfalfa. The estrogen's there to help the calf grow. And so I try to help people understand that.
And what about the bovine growth hormone? Do you think that has an effect, especially when are you in the process of you said you're putting on muscle, so I assume you're strength training or you're bodybuilding, or what's going on there?
Yeah, I'm just doing as I usually do. I'm not as great as as some people. I don't like. I've always wanted to be better at strength training, and I follow a lot of people who are really good at it. But I try. Like I just go to the gym at least 5 days out of the week, and I try to go for heavier weights. And I mix it up. I'll do a really heavy set, and then I'll do a really light set, or a really heavy set, a really light set. And I don't always do the same workout every time too. I try to engage myself out in the wild more too, because part-time I do the survival school with the primal healing program there. And so I frequently end up out in the wild and engage myself in kind of like primitive exercises. But it's just very weird lately though. Like it's not like I'm doing much more than before. I just, for whatever reason, I'm gaining more mass and muscle. Like I've gone up from benching 140 to 185 in the last couple of months. And that's just been very weird to me because I have a shoulder injury. So I'm really terrible at bench pressing.
Yeah, bench pressing is the one that'll mess up a shoulder too, out of everything you could do in the gym.
Right.
Yeah, that's the risky one. Right.
Yeah.
Asa, how old are you?
I'm 28.
28. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, my mom tries to say, oh yeah, it's just your age. You're just all of a sudden growing and getting really big. I'm like, maybe. No. I doubt it.
This is, you're right at that age when men start tapering off hormone wise, right? It's right there.
Yeah.
28 to 30, right? So you're kind of bucking the trend as it were.
Yeah.
Right.
So. Yeah, Raymond probably knows so much more than me when it comes to fitness. This dude's physique is far better than mine. I mean,
no, he's just a lucky bastard.
Yeah, that's the so end of fasting.
Love you, Ray.
So yeah.
Yeah, fasting is, oh my God. Yeah, I can go on for days on fasting.
Yeah.
It's a powerful lever for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's the carnivore's best tool for achieving cures. I mean, you could go all day and try to kill all your pathogens with said coconut oil or oregano oil or whatever, go an herbal path. That does the job, but like fasting can do the same job without giving you a load of inflammation. I mean, it's just this body's means of resetting and cleaning up and getting rid of all the things that don't belong and regenerating all the things that are gone. I mean, it's just at the cellular level, you regrow stem cells. I mean, within a, it speculates. So they found within a 3-day water fast,
72.
you reset your whole white blood cell count. That's crazy. I mean, what does it mean for dry fasting? Is a day and a half?
Right.
I mean,
Right. Actually, that's what I heard. That's it like doubles it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would be incredible. I mean, because I tell you, I mean, this is another thing I do with the survival school. I mean, I run gut goals part-time, but like, you know, I've finally been making money on that to where I can actually live off of it. But like on the survival school, I'm still doing that a little bit and trying to implement the primal healing program with it, where I kind of engage people out in the wild so they can therapeutically heal while eating in a like a primal fashion. Because, you know, diet matters, but everything else does too. But anyway, so I try to show people that the terrain principles out there. So they watch me. Like I'll go kill a squirrel for them. It has a cancer tumor in it. I gut it and I take all of its intestines and whatever out and I eat it raw right in front of them. And they're just like, whoa, you know, aren't you gonna get sick? Like I've watched all the Alone series, like some of the best dudes have to call out because even if they cook their muskrat down to jerky and you're not getting sick, I don't understand. And I try to explain to them the power of fasting and producing more white blood cells, and then also having a great microbiome that not only wants meat, but also expels anything that wants anything else besides meat. So when you get rid of those pathogens, you can be just generally immune. And in ketosis, you're already pretty immune. Like I'm sure you guys realize all kinds of benefits from the diet just for immune health, just living day to day, doing what you're doing, even considering perhaps some intermittent fasting and whatnot. Like you're doing so much by your immune health by doing that. And eating just meat is a great way to stay immune to disease. And so, or incoming disease, like I'll drink out of streams that are positive for giardia, like literally like cow shit up the stream. I'm drinking it, like no problem. And you know, everyone else would get diarrhea and get hella sick. And I just try to reinforce the idea that microbes aren't something to fear if you are strong internally. Like you have to be strong to abate anything that could come at you and make you weak. So very, very complex scientifically, but in simple terms, fasting is key. Second to that, your diet. And then third, you know, really recognizing what microbes you have in your body. And sometimes too, this is another thing, and I'm sorry, I'm going on forever.
That's great.
But sometimes like on the carnivore diet, I see people, they'll just, you know, pray to God, you know, that the carnivore diet is going to do everything for them. And it can get a lot of things in remission. But if you're looking to get any cures, you really have to consider fasting. Like carnivore is a great remission diet because it suppresses pathogens in a lot of ways. I mean, even though purines are consumed by microbes, it doesn't mean that uric acid is somehow bad as compared to if they were consuming something called nitrogen. So nitrogen's abundant in plant-based foods. And so when they're metabolizing nitrogen, that actually converts to ammonia. Ammonia is far worse in your bloodstream than uric acid. Uric acid makes up like 20% of your urine anyway. We've all had it. We all have it. And so basically, it's really important to understand that the meat-based perspective pretty much starves out those microbes that don't really belong. Some people are really afraid of parasites in raw meat, for instance, too. And largely it's I go back to the whole premise of, you know, you don't get sick from these microbes if you are strong. And so, but there is a measure of symbiosis. Your body is going to invite the microbes that are supportive, like parasites and fungi and bacteria, archaea, viruses. Well, viruses aren't in that spectrum. They're not alive. But anyway, they're just all invited to live in symbiosis, but they can become opportunistic when you're a weak host. Yeah. So, and they're kind of like that goalpost, you know, like if you, I mean, if you just at any point just make yourself lesser and you eat a ton of crap, you live a terrible lifestyle, you experience all kinds of acute stress on a regular basis, all kinds of trauma all the time, your immune system's being shut down, the microbes unfortunately will take over. And
Right.
you know, and that's where we get a lot of disease. And I'm not saying that's the only cause of disease, because I do believe there's like 3 prevailing ones. You know, you have xenobiotics, which would comprise like plastics in your adipose tissue, or heavy metals and heavy metal toxicity. We've all heard of that. Like, I have 6 tattoos. I'm probably never going to be perfectly healthy because I have methyl mercury from my red tattoos and all kinds of other metals from the other colors. And so that's, unfortunately, we're never going to escape it, but we can, you know, live in great remission and get a lot of cures done. We can get to a point where we're like really pretty close to perfect, you know. And the xenobiotics are one big causer. Also, you know, then there's nutritional deficiencies and how those actually create all kinds of toxic metabolites in the body. And then if you don't have the nutrition, you can end up in a point where your immune system's shutting down, and then the microbes can take over from that point too. Like, I try to tell people who are plant-based, if you don't have a lot of sulfur in your diet, that's a mineral that you're going to need for immune health. You're also going to need the heme iron. And this is something where I try to tell carnivores, like, don't cook your meat well done. You will turn your iron count from that meat into non-heme, which is the iron that's available in plants. And it's technically absorbable, but it has to go through like 5 different hoops in your small intestine to be able to actually get absorbed. And you may not even have the Clostridium or other bacteria to actually help you with that too. A lot of people have poor iron retention problems. And so I definitely just say, like, hey, it makes it a lot easier just to eat heme iron. And so rare steaks are ideal. And yeah, go ahead.
Hey, got a quick question. So why'd you choose chicken?
For the time I went raw or the time I did cooked chicken?
We'll cook chicken first. Yeah.
Okay. I did.
And raw also. Yeah.
I did cook chicken because it was cheap.
Okay. That was a cost thing. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. I was just because it was cheap, but I guess
Who hasn't
my mom
been there?
Recipe. Yeah. My mom had this recipe, and she taught me how to bake the chicken really well, and it was really good. And I was like, holy crud, I love the crispy skin on it. And
You ate
I
the
just
whole
fell in love with
chicken
it.
or just certain parts?
I did a whole chicken.
The whole chicken. Okay.
Yeah, just for 6 months straight.
Yeah.
I retained good
That's
weight
amazing.
too.
6 months. God.
Yeah.
So how are you getting your fats?
Well, that's the thing. These chickens were surprisingly very fatty. Like when the rendered fat came out, you'd be surprised how much fat was in that thing. Like in the glass dish, I mean, I must have been able to fill like at least like 16 ounces worth of fat out of that, like it or more. I mean, it was a lot of fat.
And then how did you eat that fat when it came out of the chicken?
Yeah, good question.
Like a sauce?
If I wasn't dipping the white meat pieces in it, I was drinking it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was a really salty dish, so it was hard to not enjoy it.
Oh wait, so you would put salt and other things, or what would you put?
I just did salt.
Just salt. Okay.
Yeah, salt. And then eventually with raw, I did a challenge. I just kind of like told everyone, hey, I'm going 75 days eating nothing but raw chicken. We'll see what happens.
Right.
And I did not do well. I lasted 50 days before I got to like 120 pounds. And I was
you lost a lot of weight.
I lost a lot of weight. And so I was so bad off. I had to like pound a lot of raw milk to gain any of that back. So
you could probably sell that meal plan for weight loss for a lot of money.
Hey, it's a raw chicken.
Raw chicken. Yeah.
Guaranteed weight loss.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just go back to like, there's something up with raw meat that just makes it so we're having a hard time being able to fully metabolize it. But here's the thing though, because I've gone through a lot of fasting and because at first I really couldn't absorb it, but then I could later through fasting.
Right.
It instinctually tells me that we can digest raw meat just as well, if not better, than cooked meat, if we build into that later, work toward it. And so there's a lot of people out there who have tried raw meat, and they kind of like do it halfway in their diet. They do like raw meat, and then they eat like cooked
Half
meat.
cooked raw. Yeah, I did that for a
Yeah,
little bit.
well, so like I feel like I do better on raw, but I won't eat the raw meat unless I get it nice and fresh.
Yeah.
Because I don't buy it straight from the farmer or anything like that, right? I buy it at the grocery store. So when I get it, like I just bought a big ribeye roast, so I'm gonna eat half that, let's say, raw, and then I'm gonna start cooking it just to be safe. And I feel better when I eat raw, and some people do, and some people don't. And of course, you can't say it's safe unless
All right.
you know exactly where it came from and it's not contaminated, right? Contamination is a real issue. There could be other issues too, and then we're talking about domesticated animals. Wild animals, like you alluded to, they are much typically have much higher parasite loads. So so that's going to be what I'm going to do, because you did an excellent job of sort of laying out what you did. I want to just go around and give people a chance to ask questions, and I'm going to do it in the order that they're displayed on my screen. So because I know it appears different on everybody's screen. So I'm gonna give Pim a chance because she's first on my screen here. Pim, you got any questions for him right now, or?
Yeah, I'm very interested in what you have found out about the microbiome and how the meat affects that. And you said that you had just one portion of rice and you're ruined. Is it that simple? So do you have like bacteria that are just residing there but not causing any trouble until you give them carbohydrates, or what's the deal?
Yeah, that's a great question, Pim. So there's not a lot of science in microbiology that can say otherwise, unless like how an all meat diet affects the microbiome, empirically. But what I can tell you is that there are a lot of lacto-fermenting bacteria that do really like meat and dairy, and they reside in the small intestine. And some of them are actually seen as pathogenic in a lot of cases. Bacteria and archaea are these prokaryotes that are just, to me, I spent a lot of time looking at like the disease factors and on their ways of causing pathogenesis, and largely I'm speculating that a lot of those bacteria that are considered like Clostridium, for instance, and Enterococcus, what are the other ones? I think it's Streptococcus. Yeah. But anyway, I'm trying to visualize this graph I went over, like all the ones that hang out in the small intestine, and I speculate some of those actually do consume meat as well, but there's no empirical evidence on that. But I just know that the Lactobacillus variety, the genus of Lactobacillus, they definitely help us with meat consumption and dairy consumption. And so I believe the actual upset, though, when eating the rice is when you introduce that rice or those carbs, the pathogens that were dormant will come back out, and your immune system will actually just attack them. So you have this innate immune system that will just use white blood cells that will just come out, shotgun shell everything it sees that doesn't belong, especially if you had been fasting. So they're all new white blood cells and they're ready to go. And so I've been exploring that a lot more. I couldn't really say with any scientific article that that's exactly true, but I can tell you with 20 different scientific articles, I can connect them all together to make a big point saying that, yes, it's possible, because they do attack microbes in that way. Those microbes do go dormant, and they will go dormant without sugar or hormones to feast on. And so when you feed them those grains can then they'll eventually make it down. I mean, they get broken down to glucose, and then the microbes want to eat the glucose, and then they come back out. The bacteria will fight them. Other pathogens will fight each other, and then this can create all kinds of problems. And then the white blood cells come in and create inflammation, and that inflammation is seen as bad. And so I've been exploring a lot lately, and I don't ever like professionally recommend it to people. Like actually triggering inflammation to create more healing, because I speculate that if you were to fast after being highly inflamed, you just had done yourself more good in having blown up the pathogens that came out, and then you then heal the inflammation and you move on. But it's very, very theoretical. So I just kind of experiment on my own body with that. But generally speaking, yes, rice. I do also make sure to, notate that plant toxins themselves do attribute themselves to the problems as well. Like grains are like number one for plant toxins. So all kinds there that all contribute to our ultimate, degradation of health. Like, oxalates are like the worst one, right? And then you got lectins, and like gluten is a lectin too. So we all know that gluten is pretty bad. All these anti-nutrients. I think the worst ones for us are really just the anti-nutrients, if you were to really break it all down. And the ones that are kind of antimicrobial, they can actually help us in some ways, but they do cause their own problems for us metabolically, but it's not as bad as like losing your zinc or your magnesium. But anyway, so my perspective on the microbiome and how it's affected through just meat, I'm trying to actually create a probiotic for it. I'm calling it meat biotics, but I'd need to I'm at the discovery phase, and I need to be able to look and empirically see exactly what bacteria are involved in like consuming meat from, like they're appearing out of the air, and they're consuming, like they're just appearing and fermenting the meat, right? Like that's obviously going to be a lot of lactobacillus, but I'm really curious to see what other genus are very much involved in that. And then also what are involved in vivo or within our own bodies, or like in the small intestine, and then look at that empirically. That would be great. But generally speaking, I do know that of those lactobacillus, there's some species that are really incredibly necessary for our health. Like I was taking what's called Lactobacillus reuteri, and reuteri is necessary for helping men produce greater testosterone and to have healthy testicular health, and to grow bigger beards, deeper voices. And it's just really tragic when I looked at that, and then I looked at the studies on boys being given antibiotics and then losing their L-reuteri, and them not actually, like the control group or the one that was the group that was given antibiotics, they grew up to be shorter and have more offset BMI than the group that didn't get antibiotics. And I thought that for a second, I was like, that's L-reuteri, like because the girls were not affected by the antibiotics in their height. Yeah.
But just a follow-up question on that, because now I was thinking, do we have anything in common with like other carnivores, like wild carnivores, or dogs that have, or cats that have been eating just meat their whole lives and not had any antibiotics? Because most people have at least once had antibiotics in their life. So I'm just wondering, like, what damage has that done? Can we actually tell from someone who's been carnivore, even if they've been it for 5 years, because they might not have come in contact with those bacteria that they should be having?
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. Like I really want to explore that more. Like you've probably heard of fecal matter transplant surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've theorized, like, wow, what would happen if we took the stool of a wild canine, and put it in us? Like,
yeah, you want to try?
Well, I might be the first person to try it, because I don't have a problem doing that. But I really would. I've actually been, like, Travis is my coworker.
I love a good experiment.
I'm like, dude, if you could find me a fresh thing of wolf shit, I will eat it. Okay. And literally, I will just be like, yeah, okay, let's see what happens. Maybe I'll become more of a predator, or maybe I'll die, whatever.
That's brilliant. You have a new business idea, wolf enemas.
Yeah, eat some wolf, help you eat meat better. Well, here's the thing. Like, when I look at my dog, she goes out in the wild. She likes to eat the fresh shit, like and it's only wild stuff. She doesn't like touching all the stuff that's out here in modern life. I think there's an instinctual reason why they're doing it. Maybe they're trying to heal their microbiome. I don't know. I mean, it sounds horribly gross, but I'm I'm willing to like try it and see what happens. Like, see if I die, see if it helps me, whatever. But yeah, I think that also we do share similar digestive tracts to carnivores. I mean, we don't have the system capable of fermenting a ton of veggies anyway. So, like,
Yep.
if we were to, look at our bodies and like an herbivore or carnivore, we definitely see more meat based. If you look at it.
Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was done. I'll give the floor to someone else.
Yeah, I just want to say there's a paper that I was reading not that long ago that sticks in my mind. It was talking about how candida and streptococcus work together. They live in the film in our mouth and they work together to break down starches. So as you think about that, and then I was thinking, yeah, I mean, the thing that gives us strep throat, one of those things that we're all worried about getting, is working with candida, which is probably more of a problem than we realize. I mean, we all know somebody who's had to deal with candida at one time or another, but it's probably more prevalent and a little more damaging than we realize. Those two are working together, they're there, so you eat something starchy like white rice or potatoes or whatever, they're breaking that down and building more enemies. So
Yeah, you got it.
well, let me ask Emily Harbo, do you have anything you want to ask him?
There you go. I just love the picture that you're creating of like this war zone. It's really cool. You're either getting the bad guys or getting the good guys, and it really helps us to figure that out. I just love fasting. That's been the thing that has been amazing for me over the years. And I have kind of purposed to do like a 5-day water fast with the understanding from Dr. Nasha Winter's book about cancer. And she had said that a 5-day seasonal water fast was just a really great thing to do for cancer prevention. And I just want to know what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah. I see water fasting. So here's the thing. Raymond is probably like maybe a couple others might have been following me on the whole fasting thing because I post a lot about it. But the water fasting is really helpful for abating what would be called acidosis. Like it's like a great cleanser. It's going to get the acids out of your body and to help you kind of like get cleaned out. I only would use water fasting for that. And cancer is very much something that has a lot of acidosis associated with it. However, like if you really want to get a lot done for actually, killing the cancer and rather than just putting it in remission, a great idea in my perspective would be to just dry fast it while on a nutritionally dense diet. You would not only have the capacity to keep your minerals, and what I mean by that is when you water fast, water is a solvent, so it's going to end up making it so that it takes some of your minerals with it as it goes through, and so you end up at some point while water fasting mineral deficient. And so that's why some people, like, I think it's a snake diet or whichever. I don't really follow him very much, but he kind of has something like that where he applies like electrolytes during the fast.
Sure.
I'm not exactly sure how he does it, but water fasting in that way can be dangerous. So make sure to always have a good amount of minerals if you were to do that for something like cancer. I contend, and I'm probably in a very small subsector of believing this is what causes cancer and how you would remediate it. But I've been exploring it a lot more lately because I have a lot of people in my life who have cancer. And I'm trying to actually look at all the cytokine activity that goes on in someone's body when they have a certain tumor. It doesn't matter what stage or grade it is. But I want to look for if it's a blood cancer. And like if it's a blood cancer, a lot of times it can have like interleukin 13 activated. And that could tell me that it's possibly leading back to a parasite. And there are specific parasites that are associated with certain interleukin activity. And so I would run a cytokine panel on someone. That would be my ideal. If I were to have cancer myself, I would look at my cytokines and then I would investigate which cytokines I have and which ones were active. And I have with said cancer. And then I'd be like, okay, yeah, that cytokine is associated with this particular pathogen. So I'm going to treat that pathogen while eating this particular diet. So while also dry fasting. So with dry fasting, like at the cellular level, you expel all kinds of pathogenic water from the cell. And through autophagy, you just regenerate, and human growth hormone, it just spikes by like 3,000% within like, it was just a day. I mean, because I think HGH goes up. Yeah, it goes up a lot. Just through water fasting and dry fasting, they speculate is pretty much like twice the effectiveness. And I love dry fasting primarily because I don't have a hard time staying hydrated. So when you're already in ketosis, you're eating a high fat diet. There's not a lot of science on this, but I can verify it through my own anecdotes and the people I've taken through dry fasting. They've only studied it on these ducks. Like when they go through a fast, their body will actually break down their fats and turn it into what's called metabolic water. And so for me, when I go past like 3 days, I start to generate metabolic water. Like my body will start breaking down its fat stores, and my saliva will start turning into like this waterfall. It gets like it's not like gross. It actually feels like I'm drinking water. And so I have no problem staying hydrated while dry fasting. So when people tell me like, oh, it's dangerous to go 3 days without food and water, and I try to explain that like, well, I'm not dehydrated though. So
totally, your baseline is very hydrated.
Right. And so when you're in a different diet, you're not like, if you're eating a whole bunch of grains all the time and sapping on your minerals and you're therefore dehydrating yourself, it's much different, and the thresholds change. So and I also eat more of a raw diet, so it's easier for me. Like when I eat more cooked or I add more salt to my diet, it's so much harder to actually stay hydrated. So I do recommend that while you need electrolytes like sodium to be able to fast properly, it may be better to just eat a half pound of kidney, which has sodium, and then you get chloride from the rest of your diet. So sodium chloride is salt, and you eat that, and then you don't do salt like a day or two before that dry fast. And then you go into your dry fast with your already mineral rich diet, and then you extend it as long as you can. Like in the winter, it's always best because it's, there's more moisture in the air and more it depends on where you live geographically, obviously. But where I am right now, I'd like to do it in the winter. I like to go past like 3 up to 5 or up to 7 days.
Yeah, I was going to ask you real quick, what kind of climate do you live in?
Well, right now, I'm in the Pacific Northwest or inland Northwest kind of. So Washington to Eastern Washington, over in Spokane or Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It's right now, there's a good amount of moisture in the air. Sometimes it can get dry, but yeah. But generally speaking, I don't have a hard time staying hydrated out here. I actually one time got bacterial meningitis, and I've been really trying to promote for people the power of dry fasting when it comes to bacterial infections. I had my whole upper body totally paralyzed, and I had to it was not like super paralyzed where I couldn't move, but it was so stiff that I was just better off not moving. And I had to lay down for like 3 days. I didn't drink or eat, and it was gone in 3 days. And it was a very weird sensation too, because it started on my left abdomen and it went up like the left side of my body, up and around my head and down like this through each of the days. It eventually ended in my right abdomen. It just made this weird oval of like this kind of inner burning sensation, kind of similar to like when I go through like what's called an acidotic crisis, they call it in dry fasting. But it just was weird. It's just fascinating how it all went. So I was great. Like I was able to hit the gym on day 4.
Wow.
How long ago was this?
Well, it was about 2.5 years ago. I had gotten a car accident. I relapsed and ate some ice cream, and then I had right after that some raw goat's milk, and then got the infection. But I was also outside in like 20-degree weather with like a t-shirt on, so I was really setting myself up for getting sick there. Anytime I eat a lot of sugar, I can easily get sick. That's why I don't go out into the wild and eat a raw wild squirrel after having eaten a lot of sugar. We'll never do that. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. I know
it's helpful. No, it's super helpful. That's awesome.
The subject is really, really complex. I'm sorry, I can't really summarize it
that
No,
well
it's
right
great.
Sure.
It's fantastic. Mhm.
So, Deck, did you have a question for Asa?
Yes, I do. I was just wondering if you could tell a bit more about your anxiety remission. You know, how long did it? How long had you had anxieties, and what did you notice? Because you were actually all set and thinking this was going to be it for you, but then just suddenly left. What kinds of anxieties aren't you not having anymore?
Oh, yeah, I mean, from the very start, I mean, I just thought it was weird, you know. I did, because I had been, for the longest time, I was battling anxiety, which is dance and expression. I was trying to do it the mental route that everyone does, you know, and I still see people today, they're like, you know, I'm trying to sell them on the carnivore diet, like, hey, it's so much better not to have to fight anxiety all the time, you know. And I'm sure you understand that. I'm sure most of the people in this room understand that. You know, they see people who are super anxious, like, hey man, you could just eat meat and not be anxious anymore, you know. And yeah, it just was amazing to me not to have to force it out of my body all the time. And yeah, so I just, it was forever gone as long as I kept like being antifungal and mostly meat. Like, and it would come back sometimes if I like really dosed myself. That's the thing. Like if you, when the microbes are metabolizing the foods and creating toxicity in your body, like the acids, like acetaldehyde or ammonia, that in itself could create the anxiety. And I speculate that it does. I mean, I think that the serotonin, the way that it affects serotonin, leptin, norepinephrine, or norepinephrine. I always pronounce that one wrong, but it's the hormone.
Norepinephrine.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I speculate that within that spectrum is the anxiety cause, and why it's not curable, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you guys, like, I'm sure like if anyone in this room who's carnivore like would eat like a couple quarts of ice cream, they can end up feeling anxious within like 2 weeks if they're or like ice cream, you know, it depends. Like I think it's gradual for each person, but for me,
I'll
it's
take
a
that
remission.
challenge. Just kidding.
Yeah, go ahead, enjoy that. But anyway,
You rather eat wolf's poop, right?
I would much rather eat wolf shit than that.
Could you tell the difference when you went raw from going from cooked meat to raw meat with your anxiety?
Oh yeah. Well, that was a really big thing. I actually skipped over the most important part of raw to me. I was molested when I was 3, and I had a pretty significant sexual change because of that. Like I liked women different than other boys, and so I liked them to actually abuse me, and so I lived with that forever, and I thought that was incurable. I thought that was just me, and I couldn't talk about it on social media because you could talk all day about being gay, but you could never talk about like, oh yeah, I like it when women hit me, you know. I was like, well, this sucks, and so I lived with that forever. And then when I was about 22, went through all that motion, I started to feel I was still attached to it, but I was way less in that depressed state where I was really meek. I actually was like more of like a confident version of that, but I still liked it. So I lived a whole life in San Francisco, and I had met a lady who was like this high-powered CEO person, and can't really talk much more than that because I signed an NDA, but I was in other words, like this butler person. And it was a crazy, weird life I lived. And when I found raw paleo, and I was dating a girl who was also abusive, it was weird because as soon as I ate that raw meat, I stopped liking anything that she wanted to do to me.
Wow.
I like absolutely hated it. And and then when I got into that whole cooked meat thing, it was weird because the cooked meat kept me in the spectrum of not wanting to be dominated, but I actually wanted to dominate. And so I ended up swapping. And so when I found raw meat, I altogether didn't want any violence in sex. I didn't want anything to do with anything within that whole BDSM scene. Like I just wanted to have a love-based relationship. I just wanted to be romantic. I just wanted to be a normal person, or quote unquote normal, but whatever. I mean, I just wanted love. And for the first time in my life, I mean, I tried to sell myself on it forever. I tried to even be super Christian about it, but it just didn't work. But yeah, it was weird. So that's a big reason why I promote raw meat. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's the B vitamins or what, but it's a huge suppressor of that. And I thought that was very weird, and it was an accident. And so since then, I've been a big advocate of it.
Wow, that's marvelous. Thank you for sharing that, Asa.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to follow that one up, but let's see if Amy's got a burning question over there.
Okay, so first off, I got to tell you, I got 2 German shepherds that are raw fed.
Nice.
And they love to eat front quarters right off of venison. So you're welcome to come over anytime and eat some of their shit. If you're interested. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Like, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny that some of the people I meet and families that they kind of like invite me over, like for this Thanksgiving, like, oh, we'll just not cook this leg for you. And
Exactly. I got like 5 front quarters laying out in my yard right now. So I'm, the open invitation right here.
Yeah. I joke. I go to the dog park with my dog and I tell people like, hey, I'm on the same diet my dog is. And they're like, like, what? Oh, so you're like cooking them ribeyes every day, right?
Yeah, sure. That's it. So on the raw note, sometimes I absolutely crave raw meat, and I give into it every time, whether it's raw ground beef or I go just cut up a ribeye or whatever it is, and I'll eat it, and I'll have 1 or 2 servings of it. And then all of a sudden I cannot swallow another bite, and I don't know what's going on. So what is that? What is going on when you just like majorly crave it and then you have to like meet that craving? Do you know what's going on in that?
I think that we all are looking to get to that point. I think our bodies ultimately want it. And as I was saying before, I just don't think that our bodies are ready for it. Like, I've progressively made it so that I can eat more and be able to actually get more energy from it. And like you, I had experienced that at first. I couldn't eat very much. It just feels so dense. It feels like I'm eating a really big meal within like a couple of bites. But I do speculate that it has to do with methylation, number 1, and also our liver and our gallbladder. I think a lot of us have a lot of buildup and toxicity in our gallbladder that has not been dealt with. We need more bile to handle all this saturated raw animal fat. That's largely why I think my body had prioritized pulling all of those gallstones out. I had excreted 17 gallstones in that dry fast. And someone had brought up to me that we can actually pull gallstones in our liver and not just the gallbladder. And I was like, well, that's weird. But it makes sense to me because the gallbladder's like this small. And I had crapped out 17 gallstones. I was like, and those gallstones were actually kind of big. I'm like, there's no way it fit in my gallbladder. And so there's a possibility that we have to get rid of all that built up like cholesterol dense, all those stones that are built up in the liver and the gallbladder to ultimately be able to really properly assimilate the raw meat. But then 2, with raw meat, there's a ton of water soluble B vitamins. And this is another thing. If you're cooking your meat a lot, you should really try your best to keep all of the juices intact, because what is comprised of those juices are often like the water soluble B vitamins that are excreted, like are cooked off. So it's really important to eat as raw as possible when you're cooking, so you can get those B vitamins. But ultimately, yeah, I think that when we try to methylate the B vitamins, our methylation cycle can be disrupted if you have yeasts in there. Like if you have them crapping out like if they're metabolizing amino acids, that is enough to disrupt the cycle. And so a lot of people may be dealing with that internal factor, and that might be why raw meat is hard to assimilate. And you would have to, in a way, know that you've gotten rid of any kind of systemic issue like that. And more people than not actually have it. It doesn't seem like we don't, but because there's not like a lot of labs that can just tell you have it or you don't, you know, like they can definitely tell you if it's in your stool, you have it in your intestines. But it's really hard to pinpoint if you have it systemically, like in the tissue or otherwise. There are like organic acids tests that I rely on that can definitely tell you if you have some in your bloodstream. And that would definitely point to a systemic issue. But generally, like, and then you could tell if it was like from a mold or a yeast. A lot of people live in moldy homes and they don't even know. And that in itself disrupts the methylation cycle. So ultimately, I think when your body is less filled with fungus and parasites, you can end up digesting the raw meat much better. And if you declog it with, you know, you remove all the gallstones and whatnot, and you have better bile, greater stomach acid through fasting, all of those factors, I think raw meat's kind of like at the end of the spectrum, like the ultimate achievement, you know, and it just takes time too. Sometimes I try to force myself. Like recently I had done that. It always, every time for me, it takes like 60 days of feeling like 90-year-old man syndrome. I call it 90-year-old man syndrome because you just barely can move. You have no energy before my body forces, you know, it actually ends up working. Like I can actually eat it. It's like a much harder version of transitioning from like carbs to just meat. Like that was much easier. With raw meat, it's like, it's hard. It's so hard that I just don't ever recommend it to anyone. Like I don't professionally say, hey, you should eat raw meat. Like when someone's having B vitamin deficiencies, I do give them a particular regimen. I have them like freeze some raw liver, and I have them dice it into cubes, and they have it freeze it for 4 days, which is kind of like the sushi style where you kill all pathogens within that time period, or what they speculate. I still have to disclaimer that. And then, you know, you just kind of take them like pills, and that would be like a super great source of B vitamins just to do that.
Okay, so as a follow-up question, is there any danger in cycling in and out between raw and cooked? And I mean, I eat most of my stuff medium rare, not chicken. I just know the chicken is always well done. I'm sorry, but is there any harm or danger?
Oh no, there's no danger at all. I think I always recommend people, if they can do it, do it. If you feel you're strong in your immunity, do it. If you have quality meat, definitely do it. You know, like it's that conventional meat that's full of microplastics and whatnot that you just gotta watch out for.
Yeah, no, we get
ultimately.
ours from a local rancher. We know exactly where it's come from. It's very fresh, no additives, no nothing. And one day I was making hamburgers and I was just like, my mouth was watering. I was like, I need to eat this. I need to eat this just the way it is. And I looked at my daughter across the table and I just reached up and I put it in my mouth and she was just like, Mom, what did you do? And I was like, I don't know, but it is freaking good.
Awesome.
So.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
like factory processed chickens are almost always contaminated with Stachybotrys and salmonella and stuff like that. And that's why they say don't even try washing it when you get it home because it gets all over your kitchen, you know. And of course, wild game. I mean, if you live in a northern latitude where it's cold, parasites like trichinosis don't die in the freezer. But if you live in the southern latitudes, they do. So, you know, the whole parasite load, bacteria loads all over the place. Of course, most of the time when we hear about people getting food poisoning, it's because the stuff was cross-contaminated or it was undercooked. And, you know, I know one friend, his chef, was saying they have a big problem at sushi restaurants where he lives because it actually, the bacteria is growing in the rice because they leave the rice in the rice warmers for so long, you know, and it's not the raw fish, right? So yeah, and then we hear all the time about contaminated crops. Like I know where I live, it's always cilantro. So it's just we're not raised in sanitary fields where it seems to be contaminated by human fecal matter. It's a constant problem. So I wanted to give Cheris a shot here. She hasn't got a chance to say anything yet. So do you have any questions for Asa or anything you wanted to contribute?
Yes, I actually have two questions. Since we're talking about raw and vitamins, what are your thoughts about vitamin A toxicity? Judy Cho just did like a couple YouTube videos about that.
Yeah. I actually keep very close to me someone who's an expert in the industry, because someone eventually brought it up to me, and I had joined the group. I got kicked out of that group, but I'm very frank about my science, so I eventually get kicked out sometimes. But I was telling them, there's a significant difference between you cooking the liver or just eating it raw, and which is abundant in vitamin A, retinol. And I've eaten a ton of raw liver, and I've never had what people would call vitamin A toxicity. Now, it would be weirdly unnatural to eat liver every day. Like if you were out in the wild and you're a primitive individual and you hunted down a deer, you just maybe get at most a half pound of liver within a month. And so I definitely say everything in moderation, especially with the organs, eating how you would if you were in the wild. If you hunted something down, you'd pretty much just get that one liver. And if it was a smaller guy, it'd be a really tiny liver. And so I do think that there is a measure of toxicity, whether or not it's vitamin A or not, because here's the thing, a lot of people end up mixing up immune reactions and saying oh, that vitamin A is causing all these red splotches to occur on someone. And I'm like, well, it's quite possible that because vitamin A is an essential immune nutrient, that it's actually doing a good job for you. Your immune reactions are just intense because you have that much disease in your body. And so it very much could be that. But I'm not going to contend and say that it's absolute. I just say from my experience and the people I've helped and I've seen that it definitely differs from each individual. Some people go too far and eat like a whole liver a day, and I'm like, don't do that. I think there's a point at which you can go too far. So whether it's vitamin A toxicity or not, I can't empirically say that.
I looked around, and the only cases of vitamin A toxicity I could find were all done with supplements. So, and there's supposedly some story somewhere about a guy who was eating bear livers and got vitamin A toxicity, but I think that's folklore because I couldn't find any actual documentation on that. And given the scarcity of bear liver, probably not a big concern, right?
Yeah, I think it was a polar bear they had gone for. I mean, they also cooked it too, so that's what I would love to have, are studies on the difference between cooked and raw, and to also have them all be from a meat-based diet. All of so many of our meat studies, or literally 99% of them, are from average diets. Yeah, meat causes colon cancer. I'm like, okay, what else were they eating? And so scientists, they are oftentimes very linear. They look at one thing and they blame it. Oh yeah, it's all this, but it's always multifactorial.
Well, it's just a lot of people that do studies and they've already got their biases, which is abundantly apparent in many of the just in the beginning there when you're reading the abstract. It's well, we believe this is the case, and that's what we're looking for, so we could argue all day whether that's science or not, but they're the people doing the study. So I think that's what happens more times than not.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of it can be very biased too. And it's frustrating. I mean, it's hard to discern that too, I generally just go by my instincts with that. What do they have to gain by being biased with this study? Right now there's such a big plant agenda going on, try to get everyone to eat nothing but plants. And I'm just thinking, wow, this is literally the intention to make everyone slave minded. And I'm obviously being kind of a conspiracy theorist at that, but I think it's true. When you see big government organizations asking you to eat a bunch of plants and maybe get some insects in your diet, probably means that they want you to start thinking a certain way and to live a certain life. But this is my opinion.
Did you get all your questions out, Cherish, or did you have one more?
I have one more. It's actually for my husband. He has a history of cervical fusions and is experiencing shoulder pain, still residual from his last set of surgeries because of the way they strapped him on the table. And you guys mentioned that bench pressing was not a good idea for somebody with a history like that. So he was wondering, what alternative does he have?
For getting like a workout in with his current situation.
Yeah, so for exercising that muscle group instead of doing a bench press, what should he be doing?
Honestly, that's gonna be a better question for Raymond. Like, I'm okay, I'm good at fitness, but I'm not like really good. Like, if I were to do like a lot of people like to do like, what's it called? It's where they have like the bands in there that kind of like create resistance. Those
like
are really
X3
great
bar or something. Yeah.
Well, like
Yeah,
a weight bearing that had that same push move. So honestly, like a push up would be kind of a similar, you know, that would be safer. But then at some point, he's going to have to challenge that because you kind of have to push it to exhaustion at some point. So that would be a similar area that he'd be training.
I actually get vertigo from an inner ear condition, and so a lot of times getting up and down off the bench is no bueno for me. So I actually do a standing up with a cable machine. So and that actually gives you a lot more probably a lot more strain on your core, so you get a little more core development out of it. Of course, the problem with that is most of those cable machines, you're probably can't stand up and press more than, well, I think my limit's somewhere around 120 pounds, and I can't get forward enough before it pulls me back. But you can get up there pretty high. Of course, resistance bands, and then if at all possible, do it with dumbbells instead of a bar, because the free movement is easier on the shoulders than the movement connected by the bar. So yeah, you can do that. And of course, push-ups are good. You know, we used to do all these crazy push-up challenges. My upper body strength was better when we did all those crazy push-up challenges, Justin and Raymond, than it is just lifting weights. So there's a lot to be said for particularly in the shoulders with doing push-ups over doing the bench. I mean, everybody who doesn't know what they're doing does bench press on Monday. And to be honest with you, if you're not competing in it, not necessarily the most useful exercise in the gym. So
I do have to take a second to shamelessly plug the X3 bar here, because it is really great for those that have injuries.
Are you using it, Justin?
I just got it. Yeah, I did my first day today. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, great.
Yeah, so an X3 bar person, a vegan and a carnivore and a keto person walk into a bar. Who goes up first? Oh, CrossFit. That's my joke. Damn it, messed it up. Yeah, there you go.
So while you're already at it, did you have any questions for Asa, Justin?
Too many questions. We'll definitely have to have you back on. It was a hit. I'm sure it's going to get a lot of views and a lot of shares. At least it better. Yeah. So my first question is so what are your thoughts on like the whole prebiotic, probiotic thing? When I was really sick, I went and saw a naturopath. She did put me on like a paleo diet as well. And she put me on like probiotics and did candida testing and the whole nine, basically, you know. And I wish she would have known about the carnivore diet 6 years ago. I would have been year 7 or 8 instead of year 2.5. But yeah, so is there, I mean, I know there's so many different strains and that's a loaded question, but the prebiotic, probiotic, you know, you got the $80 ones that are sitting there in the fridge, and you've got like the $30 ones there on the shelf, and then you've got all the different strains. And so, I mean, do you think, and my kind of approach now is getting away from supplementation, because I was a supplement junkie when I was in my teens and 20s, trying to, you know, I thought if I just take all the vitamins and all the fish oil and all the probiotics, I'll be invincible. Did not work that way. Still had several health problems. And then there was a methylation cream that I was using that naturopath put me on as well. So I know you have interest in methylation. I don't know if you've ever been on a cream like that before or know about them, but might be something to look into. But yeah, so there was a question there somewhere. So my thing now with probiotics, prebiotics is go out in the dirt, go get your hands dirty, go get your, you know, go inhale some dirt, basically, is kind of my thought to this now. Get out in nature and inhale those natural, bacteria that's around you. Maybe it's not a good idea to walk around with Clorox wipes and sanitizer in your pocket all the time. So I'm curious what your line of thinking is with that.
Well, this is partly why I think the carnivore diet is so powerful, is that a lot of people take it to what would be called a mono diet approach, where you're just eating meat. And so that, in a sense, is very powerful for the microbiome. I couldn't really say, like, again, there's just no studies on it because no one looks at it. But I will say, through anecdotes that I've seen, through the people I've helped, and for myself, it seems that the microbiome very much loves it when you're very singular in your eating. And so this is why the whole raw milk cure is such a powerful modality for healing. And I always wondered that. I've even looked into like how eating just one kind of plant for whatever reason can help someone stop cancer. Like there's a lot of power in just eating singularly. And I think that has to do with the microbiome. It makes it so much more simple for not your digestive system, but all the microbes that just want that food will start to hang out. And so there's this term, you probably heard it, you are what you eat. So if you are what you eat, then all your trillions of microbes are also what you eat. And so if you're just eating a diet that's all meat, you're probably just going to produce nothing but microbes that want meat at one point. That's probably why it takes 2 weeks for someone to stop craving the other foods. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people in this group have perhaps explored going down eating just meat and have gone like about 14 days in and like, oh, hey, I actually just want to eat meat now. And a lot of that can be tied to the microbes. This is something that I could say is true through science, is that microbes very much can make us want other foods. Like, why on earth would someone want a birthday cake? Like, that's not nutritionally valuable at all. Like, why do we want it? Like, why do I want a Twinkie? Why do I want Oreos? And you could say, oh yeah, Oreos, because you need cream, because you need calcium, whatever. But ultimately, the microbes, the pathogens, are influencing that. They are at the cellular level taking our hormones as they make it to the cell. And a lot of ways, our hormones are connected to all of our desires. And so it's very much a big multifactorial equation where it ultimately points the finger at the microbes saying, hey, if there's more of this yeast or this mold, it may be why someone wants this food. And so that's why I use that particular premise with someone who's plant-based to convert them to meat. Like they try to tell me, like, well, Asa, I want to eat a nutrient-dense diet, eat meat, but I can't because I don't like meat. And my body won't let me eat meat. I get sick when I eat meat. And I try to explain to them. You what?
Heard that all before.
Yeah. And I try to explain it from a microbial standpoint. Like your microbes are wanting plants because that's all you've been eating. So you have to give your body time to go through all that, what's probably going to be some inflammation for a little while, but then you're going to end up eventually wanting meat. You just got to give it time. And some people also metabolically have a hard time digesting saturated fats, which goes back to the same thing we were talking about earlier with the gallstones and whatnot. Like some people have really a hard time producing bile. And so it really depends on the person, but ultimately we can all eat meat. It just takes time, some more than others. Like there's some people that I know who were vegan for like 7 years and they didn't even do cooked meat. They just went to only eating raw meat. And it's just funny with a lot of I know it's weird how many vegans I know who are ex-vegans. Actually, most of the carnivore friends I know are ex-vegan. It's very weird. But like, and like most of the raw meat community is ex-vegan. It's even more weird. But I get it, because when you're vegan, you're going to raw vegan, you don't want to go down to like cooked meat. They're just like, well, they all love to listen to me talk about raw meat. They're super into that. So I'm like, oh, okay, I get it,
But, and vegans, they've already made that jump where they really changed their diet, right? So they're not afraid, because you talk to people all the time like, oh, I could never do that. I could never give up bread. I could never give up cookies or whatever the hell they say. And but vegans have already gone the distance, right? They've had the experience and they're not afraid, they just know they need to change and they change. And a lot, as far as cooking it, I like to say that most modern cooking is all about making your food taste like something else, right?
Mhm.
And when you
Mhm.
get back to it and you realize, oh man, meat's pretty good just being meat. So and then you don't have all that craziness of all these different flavors and textures and stuff like that that we've all been taught to think was so wonderful, that something simpler sometimes is much more satisfying.
Mhm. Yeah, no. And ultimately that's all the body needs. It needs simplicity. But like if someone had pancreatic cancer, I'd be like, you have to go on a mono diet. Like you don't want to stress your pancreas out producing all these crazy enzymes to deal with the food, the diverse foods that you're eating. Like it should always be extremely simple. That's what it should be for everyone. Like we should ideally, like if you're out in the wild, you're just gonna eat one kind of food, whatever that you find. Like I try to take the wilderness perspective and I see that as like the blueprint for man and like how we're supposed to be eating. And if I'm out in the wild out here, I'm pretty much 365 only going to find meat to be the most abundant food source. And sometimes we can find forageable edibles, but then I have to warn people of oxalates. And oxalates are far worse when you're out there without salt. If you consume oxalic acid and it binds with your sodium, you're going to become electrolyte deficient within a few days. You're going to be struggling. And so I definitely recommend people like, hey, the only reason the vegan diet can do okay is because and not have super bad mineral deficiencies because you probably have salt in your diet. And so if you exclude that, it can be very problematic.
And just circling back to your mono diet sort of idea that we every month there's more evidence that we were just falling around mammoths and eating them. They're like the choice food, right? We built our homes out of their bones. We built giant traps to catch them in. We made our clothes out of them. We have essentially we did eat other megafauna and other plants, and we ate shellfish and all kinds of stuff, but we made a big deal about following mammoths around and eating them until they started disappearing, 14 to 12,000 years ago. So, and let me give Ray a chance. Ray, I didn't mean to get between you and your
I wasn't done.
Oh, Justin.
You weren't done, but I'm finishing you.
Oh,
Just kidding. What'd you want to say? What'd you want to say? Justin?
Yeah, well, I have to bring it up every time now. I gave myself salmonella by partially cooking chicken and then putting it in the fridge and then eating it and seeing it was partially cooked, but moving forward anyway, because that's the kind of person I am. So I got severely sick. So there seems to be closer to raw, you're okay. Cooked, okay. That middle spot is the danger zone, which I think we all know, but I had to find out for myself because, like I said, that's the way I live my life. I lived though, and I felt like going through salmonella as a carnivore was way easier than I'd been on like a standard American diet or paleo or something. It's just, oh, just don't eat. And it's like, okay, I can do that, pretty much for like a couple of days. And then, yeah, the fever and chills sucked. It was a horrible experience. There were moments there I was like, I might die. But I made it through, I made it through it and I feel so much better now. And I think I lost like 4 pounds of like something.
So you fasted it?
Yeah, I fasted it like 56
Wow.
hours. Yeah.
Good job.
I don't think you
Yeah.
really had a choice, but yes, you fasted.
Yeah. I did. I fasted it. Food did not seem good. I was just, no, like it just wasn't going to happen.
Well, you could have taken antibiotics too.
Glad you
Right.
didn't do that.
I know that was an option, but I was like, no, I can carnivore this out.
Nice,
No, I
dude.
can.
Congrats.
Yeah. I did have help from my carnivore doctor I turn to when I do something stupid. Quality Carnivore, Austin, big shout out. Thanks for holding my hand through it a little bit. So there you go. And then 2 more other little quick questions. This one is cheese. What's your thoughts on cheese?
Well, I think the butyrate is helpful. I think ultimately it's satiating, it gives you energy. I mean, it gives you the fats. Honestly, like
there isn't enough science out there for me right now to like say either way, but from my own experience, I do not do as well on cheese. I mean, it gives me energy, makes me feel full. I like eating it. It's honestly technically addictive too. But I don't. I'm a much lesser carnivore when on cheese. So it's very similar to if I was consuming pasteurized dairy. I haven't done that in a long while. So in a lot of the raw cheeses right now aren't even technically raw. So it's just I I used to fall into cheese all the time, you know, for a little while because technically carnivore, right? But I just don't see like it's not really worth it. Like it tastes good, but I'd rather just enjoy a steak, have that taste better, and feel better. So I don't know. I never really feel better doing cheese, and the people I've helped, they obviously feel better in the moment eating the cheese, but then afterwards don't feel good. So I don't know. It's each person's different too. Like genetics apply. You could be French. Maybe you're better at assimilating cheese than other people. Great, enjoy that. But me, no. Yeah, this is my opinion on cheese.
Yeah, cheese is complicated. There's so many different kinds. There's so much going on in there. So yeah, I mean, I think people just got to take that on a case by case basis. And of course, it's the dose that makes the poison, right? There's a big difference between eating an ounce and eating 16 ounces. So
Yeah.
anything else, Justin? Any more burning questions you
Yes.
got to hit him with? All right.
Okay, where else? So where would you fall in the, so there's a big debate. Oh, it's the PUFAs, you know, the polyunsaturated fats and things like that, the omega-6 and all that stuff that are making people super sick. Carbs are technically not bad. They're not causing all the issues. Then there's the other crowd, the all carbs are bad, avoid them like the plague. So do you have a weigh in on that debate in the community?
Well, I don't think carbs are inherently bad. I don't think sugar is inherently bad. I think it becomes bad when other things in your body gets a hold of it. And so sugar is the main food source for all of those pathogens. And I think that's largely why people have problems with fruit. So I made this entire very large plant toxin guide on my website. And it took me a while to make it. I really did my research on it. But all the plant toxins associated with fruits, they're not like directly bad for humans. Like the thing that's really bad for people is the sugar and the up regulation of the insulin, which then upregulates estrogen for men, which that sucks. But it ultimately is like the sugar, I believe, in my perspective, is just feeding all the pathogens in your body. So that gives you all the same problems. Like a lot of our problems are related to all those toxic metabolites that flow through our bloodstream and disrupt all kinds of metabolic processes. And so I think if we could ever get over the hump of being infected, you know, and it them being systemic or otherwise, we may even be able to consume fruit. But to this day, I've not seen anyone like that. So that's my speculation on it. I think that sugar isn't inherently bad, and everything in moderation too. It's like Tom was saying. You just gotta have only so much. And so with like milk, there's tons of carbs in that. It's gonna break down into twice that. And like you're doing 120 grams of carbs, you're gonna have 240 grams of sugar after that. And so that's a lot. And if you were to do just raw milk, I mean, you're pretty much causing a lot of the same problems that the plants did before, just minus the plant toxins. And it feeds all the microbes. And that's why I've never been a big advocate of dairy. Like when I first started carnivore, I didn't even touch dairy because I was like, well, this is just sugar. It's feeding all the same problems that I was dealing with before. And so ultimately, I think that that when it comes to including carbs in the diet, it's not that it's the carbs that are at fault. It's really just what we have going on internally. I think we can utilize carbs to our benefit. It's just very complex and convoluted as far as like being able to do that without producing more pathogenesis. And to this day, I have not personally experienced or seen others be able to master that. And so I don't know. But otherwise, when it comes to like omega 3s and 6s, I will, as random superfluous fact is I think it was spleen. Oh no, pancreas has the omega 6, but brain will have the omega 3. So if you were to eat head to tail, you can get a really great omega 3 to 6 ratio with like any ruminant rather than just having to go for fish. But anyway, just my opinion on that.
Which animal has the best tasting nose and tail, by the way?
Well, for me personally, I for whatever reason prefer chicken, whether it's cooked or raw. I'm weird. I don't know why, but I had squirrel brain and it was really good.
Was it kind of nutty?
No, it just the first squirrel I ate tasted like pine tree, like all the meat.
Really?
Yeah, it was really gross. I call it pine meat. But then the brain tasted like chicken, so that's fascinating. And the other squirrel I ate it tasted like tree chicken. So all of it tasted like chicken. It's just I don't understand why that one squirrel tasted like pine. I guess he was just eating pine nuts all dang day, and that was it. But
pro tip: avoid ground squirrels that live near hog ranches. Just saying. Knew a guy had a problem when he ate some ground squirrels. So tree squirrels probably a little less likely to be loaded with parasites. And then with that segue, let's give Ray a chance. Ray, I know you got a lot of burning questions besides asking Asa for his phone number. So let's hear it.
What's up, Asa? So big question for me is you ever got on a beef kick at all? I know price wise.
Beef kick, like eating beef?
Yeah, like you just eating beef. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I do that most of the time these days.
I thought so.
Largely because the fat. I've been more focusing on having more weight on me nowadays.
Yeah.
I'm cool with having less weight. I feel way more dexterous and way more, limber.
Climbing your trees.
Yeah, I can climb trees pretty quick on that stuff. But I'm eating fattier these days, so I eat a lot of red meat. Yeah. I do feel that I genetically or otherwise don't seem to assimilate it as well as if I were to do chicken though. I, for whatever reason, do better on chicken just energetically or otherwise. I think there's some blockages associated with, and it doesn't matter if I order like really great red meat. I don't know.
I think slow down a good bit with the red meat. Yeah. I've noticed that with myself.
Oh, really? Yeah. Whether it's raw or cooked, there's no difference. For whatever reason with red meat, it's not like, and I again, like you could still say it's perhaps methylation because of all of those B vitamins in it. But I don't know. There's B vitamins in chicken too, so I guess I could argue that. So I don't really know. Perhaps it's the fat. Perhaps I have more like a ton of gallstones in my liver and gallbladder or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, I definitely have a problem with like a ton of red meat.
I gotta ask Asa real quick. Do you know what the chickens you're eating are eating?
I just avoid chicken that has soy or eats a lot of alfalfa.
I'm nice. Good choice.
I'm just trying not to have like estrogen in my diet. That's just kind of my fixation.
Well, and it seems as though people have reactions to pork and chicken if they eat a lot of soy. That's like a common problem for people. Not everybody, but we hear about it from time to time. So what your food's been eating can be important, right? Yeah.
Very. Yeah.
Like those squirrels eating a lot of pine nuts apparently taste very piney.
Yeah. That was very odd to me. Yeah, that they can eat, and they were in the same area too. Like I killed the other one not like a mile away from it, so I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you'd probably been robbing somebody's bird feeder.
So another question I have. So as far as fasting, what's your typical fast regimen, or is this just I'll just go on a 5-day dry fast kind of thing, or do you have an actual regimen, certain seasons or whatnot?
Every month I always hit 3 days dry. I go 3 to 5. Yeah. I'm not a big guy. I'm an ectomorph. I don't have a big body to do a lot of fasting. So some of my friends, they were going like 20 days without food and water. I'm like, okay, well
20 days without dry? 20 days dry?
Wow.
I thought 18 was like the most that I've heard of. Damn, 20.
Yeah, no, there's a couple guys in the dry fasting.
They must get
group.
really big for that.
Yeah, I didn't really see their whole bodies, but they seem to be like the sort who have a little more weight on them. I just don't have the fat stores to go that long. I could go. I'm not really afraid of being dry. I can go that long if I were taking that perspective, but right now I'm also dating, so I like to have more weight. So I'm just kind of not doing a lot of my extreme fasting right now. I'm actually to build more weight, and because as an ectomorph, I'm like 6 foot, and when I'm eating like extremely lean, or I'm not, and I'm doing a lot of fasting, I can end up sitting around like 145 pounds, and that's not a lot when you're 6 foot.
That's not for 6 foot at all.
Right. And so when I'm eating this way right now, which is like a ton of eggs and not a ton of dairy, but some dairy and raw meat, I'm at about 163 pounds. And a lot of it's been muscle gains. So I'm pretty happy about that. I've been really going up in strength too.
And are you eating like all day kind of thing when you're on eats, or do you have like a certain intermittent or what, or a certain amount?
Yeah. I try to eat all day because I have really fast metabolism. So nice. I gotta eat, or I will lose weight really fast.
I thought so.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's not healthy. I don't recommend people just eating all day, every day, all the time. I mean,
not all the time. It's actually good temporarily. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. I have a really hard time. Like I end up getting, like I'll get dark circles if I go for too long. Some skin issues, joint pain. I can get eat injured easily at the gym. And so I generally like the whole sugar factor with the raw milk, and it can be dangerous for a carnivore if you go too much, and if you like,
no doubt.
And if you don't ever fast too, but when I'm eating like this, I do find that I can go a lot longer on fasting if I did want to dry fast, just kind of do my monthly 3-day or hit 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
And when I go 3 days, I only do lose about a couple of pounds sometimes. So sometimes it's good to do. It's like, okay, well, I didn't really lose that much. It's actually kind of worth it. And so I'm just experimenting it with a lot right now. I don't ever recommend it to people. It is great for gaining muscle. Raw milk, the androgens in it, like really make me feel super masculine. But it also has the estrogen, so it's not great. But I do believe the reason why I'm gaining a lot more muscle is because of those androgens. They've really supported my growth lately. But yeah.
Good to know. Awesome.
Yeah. Wow, that was quite an interview. Awesome. And we covered a lot of ground. Holy cow. Would have never saw this coming. But anyways.
The most important question though, New York strip or ribeye? What is the cut of choice?
It depends on the farm, but 9 times out of 10 it's gonna be a ribeye for me. Yeah, like some farms have such really tender New York strips. It's probably from like real conventional feed. So I guess if you're going for taste or quality, it just really depends there. But because the grass finished cows, sometimes they don't have really good steaks. But I like ribeye the most though. Yeah.
Well,
how about you?
That is the most important question. Yeah, go Justin.
I'm team New York. I like the New York steaks. Now I typically eat conventional meat, so maybe that's why. I am getting my own cow this spring, and I'm going to raise my own cow.
Wow.
So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Considering it lives on the 4th floor.
There you go.
Is it one of those pygmy cows so you can feed it to your snake?
Keeps it on the patio. All right. I just picked the exact wrong time to take a drink of water. So anybody else got a burning question they want to hit them with? I think we've already run over an hour, but not that we have a time limit.
Almost 2 hours.
So anybody else got a burning question? I want to thank everybody for being here, by the way. We had a big crowd tonight unexpectedly. I know Ray brought in a few of his favorites with him, and of course, me and Justin are always here. But it was nice meeting everybody, and I appreciate you coming on, Asa. And I just want I like try and let people know we do a video like this one every week, and then we often do a short video every week that we put out for people who like the short format, where we just try and answer a question concisely. So, and you can find them all on Meat Mosaic. And until next time, I just encourage everybody out there to eat some meat, and whatever you do, feel better.
Don't fall down.
Don't fall down the
Carb
carb
hole.
hole.